Boom. So we are officially live. I have one of my best friends here, Ikechi, my boy Ike,
Yes.
someone that I admired, I've looked up to for a long time. We went to school together, and it's an honor for me to have my boy Ike on the podcast today. This will be our and yeah, man. So a quick background on this podcast, what we're planning to cover today is that we're going to go into personal finance. Ike has an extensive background on personal finance.
Yeah.
He's a guy that I was gone to in the past for just different tips on personal finance, on budgeting, and we'll also most likely discuss some topics on mindset. What's the best mindset for developing that abundance in life and finances? So we're definitely going to be talking about a lot of different diverse subjects. Also, Ike is ex-military. He was in the Marines in the past,
Yeah.
and I've always admired that as well from Ike, from actually having the the
Yeah.
cojones to be part of the military.
Yeah.
And so we're going to be talking about our great subjects. Ike, if you would like to give yourself a quick introduction, I know exactly who you are. You're a guy that
Of
I
course,
highly
man.
respect and admire. But if you want to give our followers here, our subscribers, just a quick rundown of who you are and what you're all about, what we're going to be discussing today.
Of course. And I give it all back to you. I mean, I think as far as being connected since the University of Houston, I've always tried to align myself with great people. And Medina, you definitely want to be sure, man. Just what you've always done, your heart, your passion has always been amazing. So a little about me. My name is Ikechi Ukazu, former military, former Marine, once Marine, always Marine, if you know what that means. I studied finance at the University of Houston back in 2016. I was in the Marine Corps from 2009 to, no, that was 2006 to 2010, went to Afghanistan 2009, 2010. And ever since I graduated from University of Houston in 2016, been doing finance for about, I mean, time flies, man. Time really flies. It's been about 8 years at this point. So 8, 9 years. So time definitely flies. But I think for me, it's always been important to talk about finance because we didn't grow up having too much. So Nigerian American, first generation, my parents came here with nothing. And so they had some of that mindset to basically have nothing and that scarcity mindset. And I've had to do a lot of work so we can overcome that. My dad and my family, we're in a great place right now, but it wasn't easy getting here. And there's still work to be done, of course. No one's really ever arrived. But I can definitely say, I mean, God's been blessing me with some great things. And the magic and the purpose of my life is to have these conversations, to have it with other people as a personal financial educator.
Definitely, definitely. And I guess that's a great starting point right there. What would you consider the biggest differences between a scarcity mindset and an abundance mindset? And the reason why I asked that is because
Mhm.
I've seen that as well in my lifetime, especially since my parents were Mexican American immigrants. And growing up in the United States, I did have certain glimpses of what a scarcity mindset was like having a lot of fear when it came to money and not really discussing money. So, like in your perspective, what do you think is the biggest differences between the scarcity mindset and the abundance mindset?
I think just the belief, man. And let me kind of just open that up a little bit. Fear says you only have one option. When you believe that something is possible, then you explore possibilities within what is possible. So you don't have one option; you have many options, and it's just believing that something, something's possible. We are creative as human beings, being that if we want something, if we think about it hard enough, if we focus on it, we're gonna get ideas how to make that happen. So with having an abundance versus a scarcity mindset, is saying, hey, I want more, and there's ways that I can make it happen. Especially when we talk about the realm of finances, is saying, especially if I want to get to this dollar amount, or I don't want to be broke, or I want to make sure that I live in abundance or live in wealth. I've been gifted different skills and resources that I can utilize that I'm not utilizing right now to make that possible.
Definitely. And like going through school, man, did you see like did your perspective start to change? What was like the point where you're like, all right, man, like there's more to bringing in abundance. There's more to having fear when thinking about money. There's a bigger world out there.
It's crazy, man, because I think when we were and let me know if I'm right, man, especially at University of Houston, that was a beautiful time. I don't know if you remember it the way I remember it, but I remember everyone being so positive, and and everyone wanting the best for each other. As soon as, I don't know what it was like for you, as soon as I got into the real world, it was like, pop that bubble. You know, it's like what you
Yeah,
want is
yeah,
not
for sure.
possible. You're nothing. You're kind of starting up from, so the real world will try to break you down. But then again, being united people like you who believe the same thing that we believe is saying, okay, no, I'm not going to accept that. We're gonna make what we want happen to happen. Of course, and you see people that also believe what we believed when we were back in University of Houston, is that you have, motivational speakers. You have people like Les Brown. You have people like Jocko Willink. You have people like David Goggins. The financial realm. You have people like J.L. Clausen. People who've written all these amazing books to say, hey, no, this stuff is possible. Information is out there to make it possible. But just to answer your question, it was definitely after graduating from University of Houston and kind of seeing what the world really believed, that was like, okay, no, I'm not about to accept that. I'm not about to just say, hey, let me just work for 40 years and have this horrible job, but let me choose what I want for my life and say what's important for me.
Yeah, definitely. I think going through, I think just the fact of getting higher level education kind of opens you up a little bit more to the possibilities,
Yes.
especially going through like accounting and just different classes that we had in school. Since we went through a business school, you kind of
Mhm.
were exposed to different perspectives, and you started to see, there's a lot better, there's more creative ways to make more
Yes.
money. And then, like you said, when you graduate, you kind of thrown into the fire a bit there, but you start to figure out your way, and you start to see what's the actual possibilities that are out there. But going into budgeting, I guess,
Sure.
like, I think it's changed a lot, man. Because I remember when I was back in college, and before college, I didn't really have a budget, bro. Like, I was just kind of winging it. I wasn't, like, I didn't really understand what was personal finance, like personal
Right.
finance 101. And it wasn't until, like you mentioned, after I graduated that I was like, all right, man, I need to make sure that I'm managing my finances. I'm not spending, I'm not overspending on stupid,
Sure. Sure.
and I'm spending correctly, right? Setting myself up for either if I want to start a business, if I
Right.
want to retire correctly.
Yeah.
What do you think, like, from a younger guy, maybe 18 to 25, he might still be in college,
Mm-hmm.
or he's about to go into college.
Right.
What do you recommend for budgeting, as far as, managing their expenses, not spending too much on certain things, staying away maybe from some liabilities, some of the
Right.
biggest liabilities that we see as young guys?
Right.
What do you think is a good budgeting strategy for these younger guys?
Yeah, and as we get started in this conversation, I want to give a shout out to John Lopez. He's the director of personal finance at University of Houston. He's the one that started this whole thing and got me interested in saying, hey, we can talk about the stuff that we're not getting taught about in school. So maybe me as a personal financial educator, I'll make sure we talk to this. And definitely, if you're coming from, say 18, getting to college, you're just starting to see some of these. You're just starting to experience. Okay, I have student loans. I'm dealing with possibly having my first credit card, possibly having a little bit of money coming in if you haven't been working in the past. And I think the biggest thing you want to do is make sure you have some of the fundamentals in place. Making sure you avoid things like credit cards, avoid things that you're not trying to overspend what you don't have. And especially if you are getting paid, because we're dealing with a different a gamut of people that might be working in college and also maybe just on student loans, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if you're just starting to get, say, student loans or whatever it is, and you kind of get some of that money, I would say the first thing you want to do is make sure you have some savings. So your goal should be to have at least $1,000 in savings as far as an emergency, because one thing, and I said this on another podcast I was a part of, is that life is going to life, right? So things are going to happen. So if you can at least say, and I love that we have this conversation. One book I definitely recommend is going to be The Richest Man in Babylon. I love that it's shown that way. Is you want to make
Definitely.
sure every single dollar you have, you do it percentages. So at least 10% goes into savings at minimum, 10% into savings.
10%.
And then if you get a chance, I want to make sure people are starting earlier. So there's a 70-30 rule. And if you can do this, more power to you. But of course, I'm being very mindful of college students, because they may not have that much income as, say, somebody who's graduating, who's earning income like you or myself, right? Um,
Yeah.
so follow these guidelines, but if you can't, just do what you can. Start where you are. So I want to make sure I say that. The 70-30 rule. The 70-30 rule says that 30% of my income, before anything else I'm going to do, before going out to eat, before doing credit cards, for anything else, I'll make sure it goes to these 3 places. 10% goes to your savings. 10% goes to investing, and we can talk about S&P 500, making sure you're just inside the investing stock market game. And 10% goes to giving. For me, I'm a man of faith. I believe in God. He's blessed me with everything I have, so I have to talk about him. I make sure I at least give 10% of whatever I have to God, to make sure, or at least some sort of charitable donation. Because one thing you want to make sure you're doing, especially with money, is to remind yourself that it's not about you. And I'll make sure I pause when I say that. Especially with people trying to get more money, it can become very much to make that money kind of the thing that masters you instead of you mastering it. So by you establishing earlier on, hey, I'm going to make sure at least with a little bit of what I can, I'm going to give to this homeless person. I'm going to give to somebody down the street. I'm going to give to this charitable donation, or my church. You're establishing earlier on that, hey, this is not about me. I'm being blessed to be a blessing to other people. And so, 10% to saving, 10% to investing, 10% to God or giving.
And what would be that less 70%? That would be like your expenses?
Yeah, everything else is basically
like
everything
life.
Life. It's for life.
Yeah.
It's everything else. So, I mean, of course, you have things like what your dorm, rent, a dorm, whatever you're doing there. But your goal is to not go over that 30% with what you have to do first. So it's almost like my brother, Jonathan, I know you work out. Like, what time do you work out, man?
Man, nowadays I try to work out early in the morning, bro. Like I try to knock it out as soon as I can.
You try to knock it out. You do it first things first, so it's out the way. So you can focus on the rest of the 7% of your day, or whatever percent is left. You can do whatever you want with that. But as long as you make sure you have these right habits in place, and we'll talk a lot about this, if you have the right habits in place, everything else will take care of themselves. So I want to make sure you're saving, make sure you're investing, and make sure you're giving, and then everything else you can take care of that.
For sure. Yeah, I think it's always best to just eat the frog when it comes to the difficult things and just do it as soon as you can. Yeah. So, all right. So 10% savings, 10% investing, and 10% giving. And then we have the rest for, life expenses. So that 1,000 in savings, like you mentioned, is just a great safety net. So in case something happens, you always have something backed up, man. And that's something that I had to learn the hard way. I think I didn't really start taking that seriously until I was maybe 22, 23.
Yeah.
It's like, all right, we got to have some savings in the bank, man, because life will happen. And you need to just make sure that you got that plan B ready.
And it feels it feels so good. And I don't mean to cut you. I'll say this really quick. It feels good to have that sitting in the bank, so you're not. And just really quickly, again, I said my dad came from Nigeria, so the credit card was the safety net. So that was something we have to pay later on. So just making sure, hey, I don't want to make sure I want my saving, my emergency saving to be something I have versus something I have to rely on someone else for. So yeah.
Definitely. No, yeah, definitely. I definitely agree with that. I think credit is like a sword, right? A sword of, it can either cut you or it can really help you depending on how you use credit.
And I have to too. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, so I was gonna mention, you mentioned to try to avoid credit cards. So I guess what's your biggest philosophy with credit cards? Do you like using credit cards? Do you like credit? Or also, when do you think is best for someone to apply for a credit card and get credit cards so they can start utilizing it?
Great question, man. Also, I love the format of this show, by the way, Jonathan. Yeah, with credit cards, like you said, it could be a double-edged sword. So I think the mentality is to use the credit card, but don't let them use you. Really, really, really let that sink in. So the first thing you need to know, when you're using credit cards, you're going to have to establish credit. The earlier you have credit, the more history you establish, right? So basically, if you get your credit card today, you're at age 0. Doesn't matter if you're 18, doesn't matter if you're 36. If you get your first credit card at that age, you're at age 0. So the longer history you have with credit card, that is a big determinant on something we call a credit score, which something is going to be very important when you're trying to buy your first house, get your first car, whatever it is. And also even get student loans, say if you go for a master's, if you need anything like that. If you're trying to lend at all, that credit score is very important. So you want to make sure you at least start it early. But as you're doing that, there are really amazing options. And I'm not trying to make sure I solicit any sort of, say, product or company. They have kind of starter credit cards. Like I know Chase has I think they have a Chase student credit card, which just starts with $50, and you pay that off, and then it kind of just starts that habit. But the main thing I want you guys to remember is that whatever you use, pay it off before the closing date. So if you're gonna say go out, with your friends, say you buy a meal from McDonald's like $10, pay it off. Don't let it accrue. So whenever you hit that closing date, say if it's on the 15th, then they can say it's almost like a closing date is basically like a snapshot. So if you owe $300 on that closing date, then they're saying, hey, you owe $300. You want that to, as much as possible, be as little to zero as possible.
Definitely. So yeah, because what I've noticed in just in the world of personal finance and business is that there's like two schools of thoughts, right? There's the Dave Ramsey school of thought, and then there's like the Robert Kiyosaki school of thought when it comes to credit. And Dave Ramsey, like he hates credit cards, man. Like if you watch a lot of his podcasts, this guy hates credit cards. He doesn't like using them, and I can see exactly why, because I actually fell into that trap too when I was in college.
Right.
And from the Robert Kiyosaki side, he always mentions that credit's like great, that you want to borrow money to buy into investments.
Yeah.
You actually have more purchasing power when it comes to investing into assets.
Yeah.
So I guess the biggest thing, my personal takeaway from seeing this in my life experience is that if you go into using credit cards correctly, where you're not overspending, and you're actually, like Ike said, you're making sure that you're paying off that statement at the end of the month before that statement ends, you can really maximize and leverage using credit cards, because a lot of them do come with a lot of benefits. Like the biggest one is that they're going to maximize your credit score. So with your credit score, you can invest into properties in the future. You can invest into, if you need vehicles, anything that might be relevant for your business. If you ever want to go into the entrepreneurship route, you have that credit that just kind of backs you up and says, okay, this guy can borrow money. He's responsible with the money. And then he can potentially do something creative with the money and either duplicate it or become profitable once he goes into his business. But if you don't have credit, if you don't establish that line of credit from the beginning, it's going to be very difficult to try to start any type of entrepreneurship venture without credit. It's just going to be very tough.
Where are you going to get the funds from? Let's be honest, unless you're saving, which is, say you have a high income earning job, that's a possibility. But I think the best thing and I should have said this at first, and I'll say this now, make sure you do your research with anything that you're getting from the internet, even with what you're hearing from me, and I'll even say for him too, whatever, think for yourself.
Yeah, for sure. Think due diligence, right?
Do your due diligence.
At the end of the day, you have to do your due diligence. You have to always study these things. Don't take it from anyone on the internet, because there's just so much information on the internet.
Yeah.
But I think these are just like personal key takeaways from personal life. And I think that also with credit, like you mentioned, there is a lot of credit cards that you could start off, like starter credit cards that kind of show you the ropes on how to use credit correctly. Exactly. And then you could use it better as you get more experience using the credit cards. And then in the future, you can apply for bigger lines of credit, which just give you more opportunity, especially when you want to make some bigger purchases. Yeah. But you have to set up that credit card. I think credit cards are very helpful. I just think, like we mentioned earlier, is that it is a sword that can either cut you or it can really, really help your ventures. Yeah. So that's credit cards. Mm-hmm. Another thing I want to highlight is just that, like our background coming as like immigrants, our parents were immigrants. It's very easy to fall into the trap of credit cards if you don't do your due diligence, because you don't have the same knowledge as someone maybe that grew up here, knows exactly how credit cards work, and they know how to, like, if like personally, like, thinking to the future, if I had kids, I would want to get them set up on credit as soon as I can. As soon as they hit 18, I want them to start using those credit cards, but I would guide them. It would be baby steps on how to use the credit. Yeah. So as soon as they start making more money, they can start using that credit more intelligently, and they know how to invest the money correctly. They're not just maxing out the credit cards, and at the end of the statement, they can't pay the credit.
You don't want to be in that trap, guys. You don't.
Yeah. That APR will start killing you because the interest is going to start to accrue, and then you're going to be in the wrong position of the credit cards. And that's how these credit card companies work, because if you need to have people that don't know how to use credit, so you can be on the side of the people that do know how to use credit. So that's why it could be a trap, but it can also be something that can really help you leverage your money and your investments.
Yeah, I mean, and definitely to your point, you want to use the system and not let the system use you. And so one thing, I just really quick story. When I was working at a bank, I have two examples that I'll keep really short. One of my favorite things was sitting down with an 18-year-old, or I think she was like 17-year-old. She was going to college, and it was getting her first credit card, and say, hey, I want you to be careful with it. And I sat down with her and with her mom on her right side and say, hey, your daughter's in a really great position. She's going to get her first checking account or whatever, but also want to make sure she gets the right habits. And it was so gratifying to see her come back 3 months and in her first class and be like, hey, I'm doing really good with my credit card, whatever. And to be a testament to say, hey, she's doing the right habits was really amazing. And then part two, just seeing people who are teaching their kids inside the same bank. I saw it was a lady that took her daughter to the bank and said, hey, this is how you're going to use your credit card. So the stuff that we didn't get, some of these kids are getting now, but I'm loving that you're doing this, Jonathan, right now, because we're getting a chance to make sure that we're setting up the next generation for prosperity and abundance.
Yeah, for sure. Definitely. And you also mentioned something very powerful, Ike, when we started going into the 70-30 rule with the 10% savings, 10% investing, and 10% giving. So just breaking those down a little bit more and just understanding on where we can invest when it comes to those three categories. Starting off with savings, what would you recommend as a good, maybe a savings account, or how would you recommend to save that money?
Now we're talking, my friend. Now we are talking. So, of course, you have your standard savings account, which earns 0% APR. They're not doing anything for you. They're just kind of just sitting there, which is great. You want to make sure at least you have that foundation, right? Because, again, life is going to life. Make sure you're ready for life. But if you're going to 2.0, we're in a position right now where banks are also offering even high yield savings accounts. So your money can be earning interest on top of itself. And it's so gratifying. I'm sorry. I get really excited about this. So where banks are getting your money that's sitting there at least 4%. So if you're having, say, an emergency savings account, you're not going to lose it because that's protected, right? FDIC protected, but also making sure that, hey, I'm going to get a paycheck just for having my money there. So it's super gratifying. So anyway, you want to make sure at least have that savings account somewhere. And did I answer the question?
Yeah, for sure. So, dude, I completely agree. I think those high interest savings accounts are amazing.
It's
And
not going
that's
to
when
last
you
forever.
can, yeah. Yeah, and that's how you can really see how compounding works for you instead of against you when you start using credit cards and you're not paying them back. Because a lot of these savings accounts, they do have around, you can estimate that it's going to be around 4 to maybe 6-7%.
Yeah. I mean, maybe a 7 on I would say 4. Right now, it's about 4 to 6%. If you're getting 7%, man, let me know where that is, because that's basically like that'd be really nice. But I think where I'm at with and again, just do your research. I'm right now with Discover. I think they're offering 4% on a high yield savings account, which is better than nothing. So if I'm parking that money somewhere, it's at least doing something for me, and also it's still sitting there. So I'm not like, and again, so you kind of have the option. If you wanted to have a savings account, you could technically just invest it to earn more, but you want to have that money just sitting there in case something were to happen. You don't want to be investing your emergency savings account. But yeah, I park it in I love Discover for what they're doing there, but of course, whatever works best for you is the best for you.
Yeah, definitely. I think in my personal experience, I've used Marcus by Goldman Sachs.
Yeah.
I think they're at 4.2 right now, and it's a pretty good account. And they let you do withdrawals at any point. So if you ever need to get access to your money, you can always jump in there and get your money back. And then also, I think Robinhood has a pretty good return as well. I think they're at 5%. I haven't used Robinhood, but they have a pretty good percent there. So yeah, go ahead, Ike.
Yeah, and I think for me, why I chose Discovery, because I already have a relationship with them on a lot of these things too. Because I was looking for, you could go with, okay, what is going to have the highest yield on my money, which is great, but also you have to kind of also consider what's the relationship. Do I have a relationship with this financial institution? Do I trust them? So I think that's where I wasn't really chasing. I wanted something, but I was really kind of working for, okay, what's the relationship I have? And I love Discover. I love their card. I think there was my first credit card. So yeah.
Yeah, same here. That was probably one of my first intro credit cards for using Discover. And then jumping into investing, you mentioned 10% investing.
Yeah.
This could be what, like maybe your retirement account, 401ks, IRAs. What
Hmm.
would you recommend for the investing category?
Yeah, of course. And then, so one thing I want to make a preface here is that you can lose money with investing, or especially if you try to take it out, you try to actualize it. So again, just do your research. There are technical risk when it comes to investing, but it's actually it's so you want to be in a position where your money is working for you, so you're not always working for money. I have to make sure I hammer that out, because if you're going to be trying to save your way into a comfortable retirement, it's not going to happen. You can't it's really hard for you to save enough that you can live off for the rest of your life. And I can talk about other stuff there. So the main thing you want to do when it comes to investing, you want to keep it simple. And I want to recommend this book. I'll talk about some books later on, but The Simple Path to Wealth, this book, I still have my bookmark in it. Anyway, um, because it'll teach you exactly how to invest. The cool thing you want to do with investing is keep it simple. You at least want to be in the game. And even um, Warren Buffett
Hmm.
is really advocating to go index fund investing, right? I'll be honest, I'm not the expert on the real estate game. People can do that. I think there are risks involved in that, but the simplest way, if you're trying to say, hey, get in the game, but get your money working for you, even Warren Buffett is saying, hey, just do inside the general index fund, which basically means that you're investing inside the entire stock market. And I'll break this down really quick. All right. So something called and also let me know if I'm talking too long, Jonathan, because
No, you're good, man. You're
I
good.
don't want to get too technical here. All right. So
No, no, you
simple thing.
go
So
off, bro.
with the investment, I will go off. All right. How much time do we have? No.
Drop the sauce, man. Drop it.
Right. So here's the thing. This is really important. All right. So again, you want to make sure you're doing general index investing, because you're trying to get just on bases, if you will. You're not trying to hit home runs. A lot of people will say, hey, invest in this stock, invest in that stock. And there's a lot of risk doing that. I've seen people get rich off of crypto, but they are usually the exception to the rule, and not the entire rule. But if you're going for something that you know you can almost guarantee, hey, I'm going to be a millionaire by this date, and know how much I'm going to get, index investing is the way to go. And of course, like I said, do your research. So with index investing, you're trying to make sure you invest into the S&P 500, which is basically the entire U.S. economy. But of course, it's connected globally. But it's basically the 500 largest companies in America today. All right. So, and if you're investing in, say, the S&P 500, its average since its inception, since like the 40s or the 50s, about 8 to 12%. 12% in a really good year, 8% even in recessions, right? So you're making sure at least there you're going 8 to 10% over time. And the cool thing about this, right, is that once you start, say, doing a systematic amount that you're doing every single month, say you're doing $100 a month, the thing you have for you when you're starting younger, you have time on your side. The cool thing about it is not timing the market, basically trying to say, hey, I'm going to try to buy this stock when it goes up or whatever. It's time in the market. I'll say it again. You want to make sure you have time in the market and not trying to time the market. Okay. So the cool thing about that is that you have something called compound interest, which makes sure that you earn money on top of your money. So if you're investing 100 dollars this year, and say it's growing at 10%, then next year you're going to have $110 working for you instead of just $100 if you're working, right? So, and then the money starts to work on itself. So instead of you just investing, say, $100 a year, you're also investing even the interest in it, so it's even growing even faster for you. And the cool thing about it is that compound interest works like this. Instead of going straight line like this, let's see if I can get the line.
Yeah.
It's hard to go backwards, but it's like a curve. So it sounds like, let me see if I can do this way. Backward. It's weird to do it way. So basically it curves up. So it starts slow once you start kind of getting the habit started, but it's something called an inflection point where it just takes off. Your money starts to take off, and to where you start looking at Oh, you got to. Okay,
Yeah,
it feels like I'm on a
yeah.
Joe Rogan podcast here, man.
Then I wanted to show you guys this quick quote. I'm pretty sure
Yeah,
you come across this quote before, right?
yeah.
By Albert Einstein, where he says that compound interest is the eighth wonder of the world. He who understands it earns it. He who doesn't pays it. And that's so relevant when it comes to credit and also using compound on your side to
Right.
build your wealth.
Okay, let me see, Jonathan. Can you do this since we're here? Since we're having fun with this, can you look
Yeah,
up
for sure, for sure.
Nerd Wallet compound interest calculator?
Yeah,
This will
let's
be
do it.
perfect.
Nerd wallet.
Thank you so much.
Interest.
My man. Oh, this is fun. I'm so glad. I love this format here.
Yeah, it's Joe Rogan, baby.
Great.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's what we're on JRE right now, man. All right, cool.
yeah, it's great.
For
All right,
that
go ahead.
first one, for the initial, put zero. Initial deposit, put zero there.
0.
Yep, zero. Cool. And then let's say, okay, we have that $100, right? And then change. Let's put the estimated rate of return. That's that one second to the bottom. Put it at 10%.
10%.
10%. Okay, cool. All right. So as you can see, can I see my mouse or no?
Your mouse? No.
Okay, I can see.
Let me see if I can have you present.
That'd be so great, man. This is probably I'm gonna start using this format here.
Check if you can do it on your end, Ike. There should be there probably is an option there for you on the bottom. If
Sure.
there's not, then
Look, actually, I think okay, let me see if I can do this real quick. And we'll go on to the next one. I don't want to take too much time on this, but this is really powerful if we get our audience to understand this.
yeah, for sure.
But and while we're doing that, is there any other? Do you know where we're going to go to after this? Anything else we're going to touch after this, Jonathan?
Yeah, I was thinking maybe we can go straight into like our final thoughts on personal finance. What's like the mindset to have going into personal finance, and then finally going into more on the mindset part, like the philosophy of how to maximize your wealth and not spend or not, don't fall into temptation to spend overspend when you shouldn't be spending too much. But we can go into the mindset part of it.
Mm-hmm. Let me see if it's going to allow. Okay. Let me see. Can you see anything?
Let me see. No, so I only see mine here. Wait, there. I think there it
There
is.
we go.
There it
Okay.
is. All right. Ah, what happened here? I think I might have kicked out Ike. Ike, you might need to jump back in. Let me see if I can invite him back. Why did he kick it out? So we lost Ike, but we're just having fun with it right now. So let me see if we can get Ike back into the call and just pick up where we left off. He might need to jump back in. All right, guys. While we do this, we take a quick 5-minute break. Get yourself some coffee. If you're watching this at night, pour yourself a drink, and we'll be back shortly here. Hey man, I think you're back. Yep.
We're good, man. This is a.
Lost you.
We'll keep it all on your screen. This is your technology, my friends.
I'm not sure what happened, man. Did I kick you out or did you exit
No,
out?
man. I think it's just trying to share a screen. It somehow it disconnected me, so we'll leave that for that. But I do want to make sure. Do you still have that pulled up that screen that we talked about, that compound interest?
Yeah.
Put it on your
Yeah,
screen.
because we're very close to pulling it up. I'm not sure what
Yeah,
happened there.
we'll do it on yours. We'll do it on yours. Okay, great. We'll just keep it here.
Okay.
Can we back out a little bit? Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So
Oh, I want to see. Yeah. Okay, that's a different layout than we had before. Okay, good. I like that layout. Good. All right. So I think the biggest thing we have to say, okay, that bottom line where you see that blue line is basically how much you would have if you just invested just regular $100 a month, right, for 5 years, right?
mhm.
Let me see, and then that green line on top, and you see right, good, perfect. Yeah, how you hovered on it. So if you just invested regular, it'll be 6,000. Let me see, go to the very end, right? So $6,000, and then if we use with the interest working on top of itself, it's going to be 7,000. What was that? 7,743, right? Now the cool thing
Yep.
about it, the more time you do this, the more time you have your money working for yourself. So if we could, Jonathan, if you could change that 5, you can make that make that make that 30.
Let's make that 30 for 30 years.
Yes, sir. And now see, this is where it gets really cool, guys. And remember, I talked about that curve, right? And so
Yeah.
I hate the fact I couldn't show it on my screen, but we're have some fun with this. So again, you see that bottom line is that's just how much money you're putting, $100 a month, right? Systematically, it's growing very, very slowly. But as the money works on top of itself, then it starts to take off. And then just for fun, let me see, we'll keep it at 30. And then if we could, Jonathan, if we could change that contribution amount, change that to 500. So see how people are starting to work, making some money, they put more money in, and now we have some millionaires here.
Nice.
So you guys can actually do this yourself. It's called the compound interest calculator. You can do it on your phone. You can find it on, again, NerdWallet. Basically, to know how much money to put in to say, okay, if I want to get to the millionaire mark by age whatever, 40, 50, whatever it is, how much money do I have to put in? You can just play around with the numbers. So if you want to underestimate it, and I'll just talk this really quickly, and we'll get off of this. The estimated rate of return, if you want to underestimate, you can go 8%. If you want to overestimate and say you want to, project for a really great market, you can say 12%. Okay, yeah, keep it at 8%. Yeah, that's cool. 8%, good. So if the market is going to be underperforming, you can say 8%. So we have $745,000, right? But if you're getting to a really great market, 12%, make it just 12 to see what that would be.
12.
Yes, sir. And then the market, it really starts to take off for you. So the interest really starts to work for you the more time you have in the market. All that to say, guys, is you want to make sure you start the habits early. Even if it's $100, that's great. But the more you put in, the more you have the market working for you, the more your money's can start working for you.
Yeah, definitely. And I think a big key takeaway here is also the contribution amount that you're contributing.
Yes,
And like
sir.
I said, like at the beginning, even if you're just getting started, just getting into the habit of saving the money and investing it, you're going to get those habits started, kick them off. But then as you start making more money in your career, your profession, you start leveling up your skills, you can
Mm-hmm.
start investing a lot more money here. So if we change this 500 to 1,000,
Yes,
you
sir.
can see the big difference
Talk
there.
to me. Now we're talking here.
Yeah,
Perfect.
this is on this is not as conservative. We drop it down, let's go to the conservative side and we go to 8%,
Yep.
you're still at a pretty good position there.
The perfect position. Yep. And this also accounts for things like the market, being in a bad position. Say we have another recession, whatever it is. On average, since its inception, since you have the market downturn in the 80s, since even the market downturn, it was the housing market in 2008. On average, it's still been 8 to 12%. So really, just kind of trusting and say, hey, I feel like the economy is going to be here in the future, and even if it's not, you're still exposed to the global economy. Really, S&P 500 is the way to go. And do your research on here, guys, so you can look up index funds, mutual funds, ETFs. That's a whole other conversation. But again, the main thing you want to do is make sure you're just in the game.
Definitely. And then finally, Ike, this is going to be a good segue into our next topic, which is mindset, abundance mindset, faith.
Mm-hmm.
Before we jump into that, with giving, you also mentioned 10% giving.
Yeah.
What's a good, I guess, what's a good way to give maybe back to your community,
Mm-hmm.
maybe back to your neighborhood,
Yeah,
maybe the communities that you're involved in. What's a
yeah.
good way to invest that money that's in?
Yeah. And if we could, can we close out the screen so we could just be you and us talking? Yeah, I want to make sure I
Yeah,
see the beard and the glasses, man. You know what I'm
there we go.
saying? But yeah, so when it comes to giving, that's actually a verse. And guys, I don't like to be too preachy about anything, but I do really believe that God has given us resources, and it's really cool to see how we can use those resources to make sure it works for you. So let me pull up this verse real quick, and I'll just read it. God knows, I'm trying to forget it. Okay. All right. So here's the thing, right? So I know you have people talk about, I'm not here to say, hey, you should tithe or anything like that. All I'm saying is one thing you should do is make sure you pray about it. Just if you're gonna give, make sure something that resonates with you. And there's a verse that I like to read. The point is this: whoever sows sparingly will also reap sparingly. Whoever sows bountifully will also reap bountifully. Each one must give as he has decided in his heart, not reluctantly or under compulsion. For God loves a cheerful giver. That is 2 Corinthians 9:16. Are you looking this? You just disappeared, man. But basically, just making sure that whatever you decide to give to, make sure something that really resonates with you. I love giving to church, but also if you feel really called to, say, give to people inside your community, say to give to a charitable organization, say it's the food bank, say it's going to be clothing, Goodwill, then just do it on a systematic basis. Because again, with that, you're saying that the money that you have is not just about you. You don't want to be one of these people. When Jonathan comes back, we'll do it. You don't want to be one of those people that tries to get money just for the sake of getting money, because it'll be something that definitely changes how you feel about the world. So,
Definitely. I'm still here. I'm sorry. I'm just gonna. Yeah, don't worry, man. I'm still here. I'm just gotta change my camera here,
no
but I
worries.
completely agree
Yeah,
with
man.
everything.
So I believe in having a given heart, and giving allows you to do that. So if you pray, then definitely ask God what He wants you to do. But if you don't, really just say, okay, how can I make sure that I'm not using all this for myself? Because if you do that, that money will take control of you, and then you'll be one of these. Again, you can look it up right now. There are people, billionaires, millionaires who have a lot of money, but they have no other type of wealth. There's a book I actually want to recommend called Robin Sharma's. It's called The Wealth That Money Can't Buy, and
The
he
wealth
talks
that
about
money
the
can
wealth.
buy.
That's a really amazing book that talks about basically the wealth that doesn't exist externally. There's other types of wealth. There's relationships. There's the fact that I'm talking with Jonathan right now. That is wealth, right? So you don't want to be these people. All you got is that fancy house, millions of billions of dollars in your bank account. But you're there all alone. That is probably the worst fate you could possibly have. So as I'm saying
Sure.
that, making sure you start to generate the mindset of like, how can I have a fully abundant life, full relationships, full of service, full of community, full of people that mean something to me. And of course, I can also give back to the community with my time, my resources, and also who I am as a person.
Definitely. And then I'll make sure to link all of these books that you recommended, Ike, in the bottom, and the link in the description below. And from that book, man, The Wealth That Money Can't Buy, is that the same author from The Monk That Sold His Ferrari?
That's it. That's
It
it.
is, right?
That's
Yeah,
it.
that's a great author, man. I really enjoyed that book, and
Yeah,
he has some really great nuggets of wisdom there
yeah,
in a lot
man.
of his books. So
Yeah.
I guess so. Yeah, that's a great mindset in giving. I think the biggest things that I've noticed when it comes to mindset is the keeping up with the Joneses. You see this in a lot of personal finance books where you have to be very careful with that mindset where you're just trying to keep up with what everyone else is purchasing. And we're gonna go a little bit on a tangent here, but
Let's
there's a
go,
great
man.
movie that I like, which is Fight Club with
We're obviously college friends because we did the same thing.
yeah, but it's man, these movies they let you know the truth, man. They keep it
That's
100.
it. Yes, sir.
And in Fight Club, he says there's a quote. I had to pull it up, but he says that like we buy things that we don't need
To impress people we don't like, or something to that effect, right?
Yeah, something, exactly like that.
I'll let you.
He
Yeah.
says, I have to read it because it's been a while since I've seen it. But whenever I see this quote, it just reminds me that you don't want to keep up with everyone else, because you're just going to be spending money. It's not going to make you fulfilled, like I was mentioning. So it says that so we buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like. And that's like the rugged way of don't keep up with the Jonases.
Right.
Because once you start going down that rabbit hole, you can put yourself in debt trying to impress people.
Exactly.
I saw this, and I see this a lot in my community, man. Like in the Mexican American community, I have to kind of put some fire under some people under my community. But in my community, man, like, growing up when I was in high school, I went to a predominantly minority high school where it was mostly Latin Americans and African Americans.
Yeah.
And a lot of my Latin American boys were like, as soon as they graduated, they were already getting trucks. Like, they were getting very expensive trucks.
Right.
As soon as they graduated, they wouldn't even go to, some of them didn't even go to college, but they would start buying like $20,000, $30,000.
Yeah, man.
Trucks, personal notes, taking out those personal notes with high APR.
Right.
And a lot of the reason why is because they were trying to flex, man. They were trying to, they were trying to look good, either for girls or for, like, for everyone else. And man, so like they put themselves in debt with that mindset. They're trying to, please other people, impress other people. Maybe it's even people they don't like, but you can really put yourself in the hole when you start having that type of mentality where you're just trying to flex on people, and you're getting all these liabilities, and you're, once the tide comes down, you really see who's exposed in those situations.
Exactly. I mean, everything comes out to the light at some point, gentlemen. Whoever's watching this podcast, I think you have a lot of guys who watch this podcast, but I think the main thing we could do to circumvent that and to mitigate that is to make sure that we establish our own value. If you know what your purpose is, and also I'm gonna recommend, this is off the tangent. I don't know if you checked out this book, Jonathan, The Alchemist.
Oh, for sure.
We got recommended this book in TBLCP. I read this book every single year, my friend. It's not even book, it's basically saying, like, hey, if you're going to live on your purpose, do what you want to do, live on your own terms, focus on your path. Don't worry about what's to the right or left. Focus on what's in front of you and make that be your target goal. That way you get to the point of, like, okay, I don't care what they think. I don't care what they're doing. I'll focus on what I have to do. And if you focus on what makes you happy as a person, that's going to be so much more sustaining than you trying to say, hey, I need to make sure I overspend or get credit cards for this girl because I want her to like me. She should like you for you. Man, we're going to get a whole topic. The people in your life, and I'm talking like a politician now because I have my finger like this. The people in your life should like you for you and not for the external things you can give them. Because as soon as those things go, they're going to go too. So make sure the people you have in your life really like you for what you're doing. And really quickly to your point, I mean, so much in the Nigerian American community. I love our people, but we're so on to the flexing thing, man. We have to get rid of that and just focus on, hey, are my relationships good? Do people like me for me? Do I like them for them? Then we're good. All the trying to flex and buy restaurants and all these things, that stuff doesn't matter. All the clothes does not matter. At the end of the day, it's whose life are you involved with, and also who was involved in your life. That's it.
Yeah, for sure. I think if you invest into like your personal image, like right now you can see Ike and I are wearing, we got our blazer on, we look good for the podcast. I think that's a good investment because you're giving a great impression to the world whenever you meet other high level individuals, other men, whenever you're networking. It's always a great way to just kind of stand out a little bit, right? Get yourself a better image.
Of course. And all this is tied into finance too, right? So you're going to make sure you budget for that too. And if you say, okay, I want to make sure I'm saving up for buying this new cool suit to make sure I'm doing good for my job interviews, especially if you're coming out of college, save for that. Don't go broke for that, right? So save for these things, and then you still have your savings account. You still make sure you're saving. Again, if you focus on the three things we talked about, making sure you're doing the 30-70, hey, I'm saving, I'm investing, I'm giving. Now I'm saving for a suit. Do that, but you shouldn't be going broke.
For
But
sure.
like you said, you can save for the car, you can save for the new suit, you can save for the watch, for the whatever it is. But again, just make sure you kind of follow the habits.
Yeah, for sure. It's like you always have to do that cost analysis, right? If it's going to actually give you a return on your investment. Like if you're, when we're in college, man, like buying a nice suit just opened up the door for more opportunities with different employers, with other
Yeah,
people. When you're networking, you just have a better image to yourself. But let's say if you invested that money into like a car just so you can get some new rims on the car,
yeah,
like if you really analyze that, that's a liability because you're not building connections, you're not getting a better look forward with your self image. So it's just like doing like that cost analysis and seeing
yeah.
if it's actually going to give you some return on your investment, whether it's in your career with your personal image. I think whenever it's, even if it's a higher purchase, if it makes sense, then okay, like you're making the purchase, but you know that it's going to give you a higher return for your future as well.
And it's really crazy you say that, man. I had a thought this morning as I woke up, just to focus on wise thinking, and that every decision you should make should have a return on investment. And I don't say that just in form of just money. I'm saying in form of the energy. Like, this is a very energy giving conversation. And doing this is also very energy giving to me. But it makes your decisions so much easier. If you feel like you're pouring, and we're kind of getting off the financials, but everything is related anyway. If you're pouring in
Yeah,
these relationships and these people who are just kind of sucking your energy, that's not a return on your investment. If you're pouring into
for
somebody
sure.
like, like this conversation where Jonathan's like looking cool as hell with the glasses and we're having this conversation, this is a return on my investment. So I love doing this because I love living my purpose, but also we're both living in our purpose, doing great things. So this is a return on investment. So make decisions that give that feedback into who you are.
Yeah, definitely. Like I made a video not too long ago about this topic where I was kind of mentioning how like the most important resources that we have is your money, energy, attention, and your time.
Sir. Yep.
Yeah, and also that nothing's free. Like there's always a cost to
Mm,
everything that you do. So whether you're going out for some drinks, whether you're going for a coffee, whether you're watching a TV show, there's always an opportunity cost that goes into it. Like going into economics
yep.
is that you are going to spend either your time, your energy, or your attention into something. And if you don't
Yep.
physically see it because you're not spending money into that activity, you're
Mhm.
still spending something. So it's always just kind of being conscious and aware of that, of where your energy and your attention is going. And like Ike said, if you feel like you're losing energy in certain relationships, if you feel like you're being drained from your energy, then you really have to analyze if it's a relationship that you want to keep pursuing and you want to stay a part of. If you don't see any benefit to being in said relationship, then it's probably best to just kind of step away from it and go into avenues where you're going to be more maximized with your energy and your
Yeah.
time.
I mean, let's talk about that, man. I know we're coming up on time here. I'm cool, but like I was when I was dating a couple of years ago. There was this girl. I mean, off the jump, bro. She was like, "Hey, take me to this restaurant. Take me." I'm like, I don't even know. This is the first date. Like, you got to earn, the benefits there. But I think just making sure, because there are some girls out there that will try to do that to you, and then there's some girls that are like, "Hey, I'm trying to get to know you as a man." And those things are the most beneficial relationships. So I definitely say with anything, just evaluate that.
Yeah, definitely. I think this comes to both sexes, right? Like I think for us as men, we like this is something that we see. I see this a lot as well
Yeah.
with when it comes to first dates. I also think that women see this, but they might see it in a different way,
Mm,
where guys might take up their time, their attention, or they're kind of they're dealing in bad terms where they're not really taking the girl seriously.
right.
So I think girls and guys need to take be very conscious of what's going on in these relationships. But I think when it comes to us as men, it's never a good idea to lead with your wallet because yeah, when you start leading with your wallet and people start seeing that like you just want to pay for everything, then it's just kind of setting up that relationship for failure because one, you can get taken advantage of with your money, and then also with your time. A lot of time, a lot of I'm not saying specifically girls because men also do this as well, but a lot of people negotiate with bad faith where you might take her out on a date, spend, go to a restaurant, spend a lot of money, and
Hmm.
then after that, there's nothing. She doesn't want to pursue the relationship further. So
Right.
at that point, it's like you spent that money, you spent that time, that energy, the attention, and then you didn't really get anything from the investment. So it's always, you have to be very, very diligent and discerning what is the best way to go into that relationship.
Yeah.
And I think that a great date, like if the girl is really feeling you and she really likes you, I think a great date would be just, start off small at the beginning, get to know each other, go to a park, something. It can be something light. It could be even a restaurant. Get something light, something small. But
Yeah.
you don't want to go in guns blazing. You're spending all this money
Right.
flexing
No.
when there's not really any promise or there's not any assurance that this might become something greater in the future.
Yeah, and to that point, and just I think one thing we have to make sure we do is, of course, as you're dating, as you're getting in front of people, that's great to be out there and to make those connections and possibly even, get some, amazing girlfriend, whatever it is. But it's important to also spend time alone to kind of realize, okay, what am I really looking for before I get out there? So you want to have that balance, be out there, make the connections, but also make sure you have time to kind of think about some of the things we talked about. Think about what makes sense for you. So you kind of have a game plan for what you're looking for once you get out there and start making those connections.
Definitely. You make a great point there, man, because I think one thing that I always mention to guys is that it's not really beneficial to get into a long-term relationship, a very serious relationship when you're young,
Yeah.
from 18 to 25. I think those are the primal years for you to really focus on leveling yourself up,
Yeah.
leveling up your finances, your skills
Yep.
before getting into a relationship. Because, like we mentioned, the opportunity cost of going into a relationship where you're going to be spending money, you're going to be spending a lot of energy and time.
Right.
And then as opposed to if you're investing that into your career, into leveling up your finances, you're going to be in a way better position. And then what I've noticed, guy, you can chime in on this, but
Sure.
as a man, dating just gets a lot easier when you start getting older. When you start getting into your late 20s, early 30s, I think that dating is just a lot better.
I mean, when you know who you are, you know what I'm saying? Like, we've talked about this whole, kind of making sure you kind of stay in your own lane. You have to know what lane you're in before you start getting out there. And even, of course, bringing it back into the finances too, you have to know what's really important to you, right? So if the clubs are really important to you, you have to really kind of evaluate that. And again, it's really kind of evaluate the cost. But learning how to spend time alone, be comfortable with you, be cool with just being you, will give you a lot more foresight to say, okay, I can discern if that's really for me or not going to be for me.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. But yeah, man. So we covered a lot of great topics. I think the biggest thing here, I guess, segueing into like traveling abroad, man. Like I know you were in Peru, you were in South America for a while, and just leveling up your Spanish. And if I'm not mistaken, you're multilingual, right? You know, three
I,
languages at this point.
I am trying. I am trying. I'm also, hopefully this is not trying to be a flex, but I mean, so real quick, I grew up around a lot of Latino people growing up. You know what I'm saying? So I think I just fell in love with the culture, and I was a part of HBSA, which is Hispanic Business Student Association back at the University of Houston. This Nigerian kid, right? But you guys like, what the hell's up with this guy? But I think just learning about the culture, and also even after I got out of of college, I joined my Nigerian community as well. But I love these languages are a different way for us to connect with people. So yeah, Peru was fun, man, and I hope to do more trips like that in the future.
Yeah, and what do you think are the biggest benefits, man, of just learning a different language? Like, if you like, we can do some Spanish, test you a little bit, see how
Please,
polished up you are in your
I
Spanish.
need I need to. I just came back. I'm ready. I tested for this podcast.
Yeah, for sure. Entonces, ¿cómo viste a Perú? ¿Te gustó la gente, el clima? ¿Qué tal tuvo tu experiencia en Perú y en Sudamérica?
Mi experiencia en Perú fue muy increíble porque conocí a mucha gente. Yo fui con dos mujeres ahí, pero no para crear una relación, para conocer la gente allí. Y yo pienso que lo más importante cosa yo aprendí en Perú fue aprendiendo que como dice, it's bigger than me. How you say that in Spanish?
¿Está más grande que tú?
Es más grande de mí. Porque yo aprendí que hay muchas cosas otras partes del mundo that don't even know about me. I'm gonna do a little Spanglish, man,
No,
because
no, you're good, man. Yeah, yeah, for sure.
don't even know about you. Pienso que experiencias como así de abrir nuestras mentes, que saber crear humildad y crear que no que saber que it's not about you, it's about being a part of this human experience and being a part of just everybody, and you're one small part of this big puzzle.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I completely agree, man. When you're in different countries, you just kind of see like the bigger picture on things. And one thing that when you're just living in one society and you just kind of see that perspective,
Right.
you have a very narrow view of the world. And you know, when you actually go abroad, you start to develop more empathy because you can see the perspective of different cultures and different people.
Right, right, right. I mean, es importante que comprender más otras culturas, um, porque cuando volvimos a nuestros países, esa nuevo mentalidad. So, pienso yo veo muchas cosas un poco diferente than when I left. But yeah, man, I think, and thank you for the Spanish lesson, by the way. But yeah, I think just traveling to other places, just like you're in Colombia right now, it changes your mind to really see things in a different way. And again, to learn that it's not just about you.
Yeah, for sure. Let me pull up this camera again, man. Like this thing is dying on me. But yeah, no, I completely agree, man. And so I guess on that point, while I set this up, what was your biggest? I guess like what did you see the biggest differences between the U.S. and South America and
Oh,
Peru?
that's a big question. Well, it's crazy, right? Because I went to I would say when I went to Mexico, this is about 2 years ago, right? And I went to also like Nigeria. I saw everybody was like hustling. There was a lot of people like moving around. And again, I'm not trying to say anything I saw a lot of people just moving, right?
Yeah.
Um, but I will say that I saw more people living there than it seemed like people here kind of just going through the motion. It seems like
Hmm.
people there are really just kind of they're experiencing life and they're able to make connections. They're open and they're trying to have experiences rather than kind of just going through the same mundane thing every single day. So I think whenever and it's weird. I told somebody about this when I went to Peru and actually when I went to Puerto Vallarta. I just saw more color, more expressiveness. And when I came back to stateside, it was like it felt like the color was sapped out, you know. So I think it's a life over there that's completely different. You have to go there, experience it. But I love that, and I think what I want to do going forward in my life, what I've taken from that is I want to live my life in color. You know what I'm saying? I want to live every single day like we're making their story our own. We're not just trying to just be cogs in the wheel. We're trying to create our own destiny and live our own path. And I have some books I want to shut up before we cut out, but that's basically it, man. Just living life on your own terms.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. Yeah, I think the U.S. is just a hyper capitalist machine, man. When you
Right.
go there,
Very machine like. Yeah.
and I guess the last question I have on your Peru experience is how would you think of the like going back to the finance part? The way what's the
Yeah.
word I'm looking for here, the lifestyle, like how much was the cost of living in Peru, and did you think it was expensive? Did you think it was cheap?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, it was definitely a lot cheaper. You know, I think Uber's there. The airport Uber for me in the U.S. was like $50 versus the airport Uber there was like $5-10. It was crazy. So the cost of living is definitely different there. But yeah, that's basically it.
What about the rent? Like the rent, your groceries?
Well, I didn't stay there for long to really get groceries, but even just like going to the restaurants over there were a lot. It was easier to buy food, a lot
Mhm.
cheaper. a full meal was like $5 versus over here. I mean, that could be, what, $15, $20, and it adds up. So I think, yeah, I mean, I like what you're doing over there in Colombia. You're living there and also able to really maximize the money that you're getting. So I could definitely
Yeah.
in the future.
So could you see yourself living in Peru long term?
If I were to do it, probably like Mexico first, man. To be honest.
You like Mexico more?
Oh, yeah, I do.
You like what like
What
Puerto
part?
Vallarta more?
Yeah.
Or what part?
I mean, I could see myself living in CDMX because that was pretty cool. But
Yeah.
I'm open to recommendations for best places to be. And I have to go back to Lima, man. I didn't get a chance to travel. There's one place I really want to. I want to see like the historical cathedrals in the main plaza, but I go back
Yeah.
next time for sure.
Yeah, for sure, man. So if you want to close this out, Ike, with the best, any book recommendations, anything else that you recommend?
All right, and one thing you guys should know, I'm not a fan of fluffy books. I hate fluffy books. So books that are just people saying, "Hey, I'm going to get you rich for 60 days." Nah, these books will change your life. So first things first, Richest Man in Babylon. If you haven't checked it out, definitely check that out. It's an amazing book. It's just packed full of wisdom that'll change your life. If you guys do not know who Jim Rohn is, let me see if I get that. Yeah, and then it gets a show. But it's called Seven Strategies for Wealth and Happiness by Jim Rohn. If you do not know who Jim Rohn, he will change your life. Jonathan, do you know Jim Rohn, man?
Yeah, for sure. He's more like more on the mindset, right?
Yeah, mindset. I mean, life, money. He touches on everything. He's amazing, man. So Jim Rohn, definitely check him out. The Alchemist. If you want to know what your life path is, this book will definitely help. Of course, the Bible is great for that as well. But The Alchemist is just about finding your own journey and finding out what resonates with you. And the greatest thing from that is realizing that the thing that will most satisfy you is not a relationship, it's not money, it's not a career, it's your purpose. You get that with this book. And the last thing for the investing mindset, Simple Path to Wealth by J.L. Clausen. This is an amazing, amazing book. J.L. Collins, I should say. Will teach you exactly how to invest. And also, if you're trying to find like the FIRE lifestyle, which is basically financial independence, retire early, this will teach you exactly how to do it. So,
Very nice, very nice. Ike, I really appreciate you being on the podcast today, man. Like always, it's always a pleasure being with you, talking to you, discussing these different topics. I always learn something new every time that we get together. And also, everyone, for the audience, thank you for bearing with us with a lot of the technical issues that we're experiencing.
Thank you guys so much.
Yeah, I had to change like 2 cameras out right now just
Yeah.
so I can jump back, but it's all good. Learning experience. StreamYard is also a great application to use if you ever want to do some streaming. So, this is part of the game. You can't expect everything to just go, 100% on point and perfect.
And it doesn't. And I think that and thanks for saying that, because I think it allows us to have grace, especially as we're trying new things. And this is Jonathan's purpose to live in doing this. And of course, as we're doing this, and of course, as I'm stepping, nothing's ever going to be perfect. But the most important thing you want to do is to keep doing it, because it's like a skill set. You'll get better and get better. And you probably have some things you talk about: growth mindset versus fixed mindset. Keep growing no matter what. That's the most important thing.
Definitely. Ike, I really appreciate it, man. We'll continue this conversation offline. But guys, there you have it. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that like button. Also, hit that subscribe button. I'll catch everyone in the next video. Stay strong, stay relentless, and keep on conquering. Got this. Peace.